there's a really beautiful interview that takes place between Guy Raz, who does the TED Radio Hour on NPR, and Elizabeth Gilbert, who wrote the book Eat, Pray, Love. And this interview is this really incredible interview where Elizabeth Gilbert talks about the writing process, and she says that everything just kind of felt so natural to her when she was writing this book. Everything just kind of poured out, and then when she got to the ending, her editor said, "This is beautiful, this is ready to go, everything is set, I just need a title." So Elizabeth Gilbert said, okay, so I'll sit and think of a title. So she sat and she was thinking of a title, and it took her 1 day, and then it took her 2 days, and then it took her 3 days, and it kept going and going, and she kept pushing off this deadline because she got to this point where she couldn't think of a title for this book that she had just written, and she was getting so frustrated. She was really beating herself up and saying, how can I have written this book and the title of this book is just escaping me? There's nothing that I can do. And eventually, in this point of great frustration, she sends an email to her family and to her good friends, and she says in this email to all of these people that she loves and cares about, I can't think of a title for this stupid book that I've written. And then one of her friends emails her back and writes, your book's never going to tell you its title if you talk about it like that. Which is so cute, right? It's this cute little idea, but at the same time, she explains in this interview with Guy Raz that she actually really thought about that. And then she took that advice and took that wisdom back with her, and she sat there in front of her computer, and she talked to her book, and she called it sweetheart, and she called it honey, and she called all these other terms of endearment where she spoke to it with all this love, because it really had been a labor of love where she was pouring out her entire heart, and this manuscript, this book that she was writing, was responding to her. And at the end of this day of being able to respond to her manuscript with such sweetness and tenderness, she said she went, got ready for bed, and it just popped into her head, Eat, Pray, Love. And that was the title. Now we can think about this as kind of magical thinking, right? That there is something where we can speak to something. It's almost like an ancient idea of a muse. But in her interview with Guy Raz, she explains that this was actually very powerful for her, and though she is a modern person who believes in science and who believes in all of these other things that she can see with her eyes and you can sense and you can observe, that is what she believes in. At the same time, she says with a little suspension of belief, she had a really profound and beautiful experience, and that's how she came up with her title. And if we think about it, magical thinking is something that's really difficult. It's hard, because we have to rely on something that is as close to faith as Jews get, which is being able to think about something that goes beyond the pessimism and the skepticism that we're actually taught. And when it comes to Judaism, let's be clear, we are taught to be skeptical. The whole idea of rabbinic Judaism that we learn in our Talmud is that when we are presented with something, we are supposed to have a machloket, we are supposed to push back, we are supposed to argue, we are told that we are a stiff-necked people. What do we do with our stiff necks? We argue back. That old idea of 2 Jews, 3 opinions is something that's actually a really beautiful idea, because it makes us challenge each other and grow. But at the same time, there's a paradox. And I think that this is my favorite word in Judaism, because I don't think Judaism exists without this word of a paradox. But there's a paradox because just as much as we are supposed to push back, and just as much as we are supposed to be skeptical, and just as much as we are supposed to argue and break our teeth on the Torah and the text and our tradition and our ritual, we're also required every once in a while to take a step back and to believe. And if we think about this, if we don't have that belief, Judaism is much, much harder, and it's a lot less beautiful. Can you be a Jew without believing in the power of ritual or believing in the magic that comes with ritual? Sure. Of course you can. But the question I would have back is, can you live a Judaism to its fullest if we don't have that magic. If we light candles on Friday night before Shabbat or before a Yom Tov, and we view it just as lighting candles instead of waving our hands and actually having a moment of magic, do we really get to fully understand what that ritual is? If we hold up a cup on Friday night or on Saturday for lunch and we are just holding up a cup that is filled with wine or grape juice, are we really experiencing what it means to say Kiddush? And when it comes to these high holidays, if we look at them as just a couple more days where we're in shul for a really long time, do we fully understand and appreciate what it means to be at shul for Rosh Hashanah and for Yom Kippur? Because these days are called the Yamim Noraim. They are called the days of awe. They are not called the days of long shul. They are called the days of awe because they are filled with ritual and symbolism and things that make us question who we are and to really dig down and have this introspection that digs through our hearts. And we're supposed to respond to them. And as we get ready on this Shabbat Shuvah to go into this incredible day, the culmination of these Yamim Noraim, which is this day of Yom HaKippurim, we're asked to do something that's incredibly powerful but incredibly difficult. And again, it's asking us to take it seriously. Because Yom Kippur is not just a day where we spend our whole day together in shul. It's a day where we're supposed to contemplate our own death. It is a day where we are supposed to not only think about our death, but get so close to it that we're actually robing ourselves and mimicking the gestures and doing all of these different things to prepare ourselves for our own demise. Traditionally, we wear a kittel, a white shroud, on Yom Kippur, which is the same type of clothing that we wear, that we're buried in. The purpose of not wearing leather shoes is equated with certain mourning rites. Not eating, not drinking, not engaging in physical pleasure or intercourse. These are all things that are supposed to let us know what it feels like to be dead. And just so we're very, very clear, not symbolically dead. Dead. For one day, we are supposed to act like it is quite possibly the last day that we are going to be on earth. And it's up to us to take that seriously. And my challenge for all of us this Shabbat Shuvah is to do just that. And if we do, I promise you it's going to be scary. It's going to be terrifying. It's going to have moments that are going to be filled with deep sadness and deep fear. But it's also going to be filled with moments of deep consolation and of peace and of pride. And because our tradition is so rich and so beautiful, it prepares us so perfectly for this beautiful day, because as we look in our Torah portion this week, Parashat Vayelech, we have come to this point in our Torah where we have gone through this whole narrative cycle, and we are now in the book of Devarim and the book of Deuteronomy. And Moses, we switch from a third-person narrative to a first-person narrative where Moses gets to explain to the Israelites in these series of speeches every part of the adventure up until this point. And then when we get to our parasha this week, Moses has to say to all of the children of Israel, by the way, I'm going to die. You're going alone from this point on. But this is what I can give you. I can give you a blessing of what is going to come when you reach the other side of this river. And I can give you a poem. Now this is an incredible moment in the Torah, because if we remember all the way back to the very beginning when Moses is first called in front of the burning bush, what does Moses say when God calls upon him? Moses says, "Why me? Are you out of your mind? Me who is slow of speech And commentators say that the slow of speech could be a speech impediment, it could be a bunch of numerous things. But ultimately, God says, why not you? Sure, you're slow of speech. You might have a speech impediment. And you know what? At first, we're going to use Aaron to be the mouthpiece that is going to help you to convey all the messages you need to convey to the children of Israel. But look how far we've come. From the point where Moses is saying, how could you possibly choose me, someone slow of speech, to our parasha this week, where Moses says, I'm about to die, and the thing that I'm going to leave you as a gift is a poem. Moses goes from a speech impediment to a poet. And at the same time, that poem that Moses is offering the children of Israel is an opportunity to say, here is what I can possibly give you before you go on. And it is a message directly to us and directly to our hearts as we imagine our own day of death, which is 3 days from now. That we have the ability and we have the opportunity to craft a poem, to craft something that is going to tell us who we are in a year ahead, where we have to take it seriously that in the year 5778 we were one person, and that person during this period of these Yamim Noraim, these days of awe, is going to perish. What is the message that we want to give to the person that we're going to be this coming year? What is the message we want to pass on to our future selves? On this Shabbat Shuvah, we are asked to believe in magic. Not because it makes things easier, dafka the opposite. The magic isn't there to help take away our sins. The magic isn't there to help make everything more meaningful. The magic is there because if we believe in that magic, even if it's just for one day, then the way that we interact with ourselves, with our souls, with those that we love, and with the community around us, has the ability to profoundly change us and our community. So my blessing to all of us in this Shabbat Shuvah is to take whatever poem you're working on for this year ahead and to talk sweetly to it. Instead of cursing it, instead of calling it stupid and it not giving you its title for the year ahead, talk sweetly to it. Call it sweetheart. Because the day is coming very soon where we have to face our own mortality. And it's up to us what we do with it. Shabbat Shalom.